grew up in Indianapolis or the Midwest in the 1940s to 1960s, no doubt you probably heard about the House of Blue Lights on the city's northeast side. It became a rite of passage for Indianapolis teenagers to park their cars at the end of a long wooded driveway off of Fall Creek Road. Many would climb the steep, hilly woods to get an eerie glimpse of a supposed woman's casket wrapped in blue Christmas lights, kept in the strange mansion of her mourning husband, Skiles Test. Some teenagers were so bold to take a midnight dip in the eccentric millionaire's elaborate swimming pool. And the fascinating part of the House of Blue Lights legend was not so much the location of Test's dead wife, but the truth about how the story came about in the first place. The truth was that his wife and two ex-wives long outlived him. Skiles Test was born in Indianapolis to parents Charles and Mary Elizabeth Skiles on October 19, 1889. Charles had made a fortune as president of the Indianapolis Chain Works and the National Motor Vehicle Company. Growing up in a mansion on the northeast side, Skiles graduated from high school in 1908 after being consistently on the honor roll. When his father died in 1910, Skiles Test became the head of his family. Then in 1913, he married his first wife, Josephine Benjes, and the two moved just northeast of town into a small house tucked away in a large wooded farm. Skiles was fueled by a brilliant technical mind and several successful business ventures to have a seemingly endless supply of money. He built an eccentric assortment of structures and contraptions on the famous property. He built a small railroad system, built his own power plant, operated a fully functional farm around the First World War, and starting in the 1950s, befriended and cared for between 150 to 250 stray cats. It's hard to know totally when the property began to gain notoriety. Some claim hearing about these things between the two world wars. Skiles Test loved the color blue. He put up blue lights each holiday season, along with blue bug zapping lights around his enormous swimming pool. As to how the urban legend got started, people came up with several variations, but the core legend had it that a rich old man lived in a secluded home in which his beloved wife died by accident. Because he couldn't part with her, it's said that he kept her in a glass coffin, wrapped in blue lights, kept her in the house. In actuality, Test's wife had not died. However, by the mid-1950s, there were hundreds of trespassers wanting to catch a peek, so Skiles put up a tall fence around the whole property. The trespassers and vandals became even bolder. Once he found a group of teenagers swimming in his pool, they released animals from their pens and started fires in outbuildings. Occasionally, Test would stay in the cinder block pool house for more safety. Suffering from stress-related ulcers, he began to leave each night, went to his girlfriend's house to find comfort and protection. The nonstop onslaught of lookers had taken a toll on Test. Skiles died on March 19, 1964. It became apparent that the main house and the other buildings should never be lived in again. So an estate sale took place that became a spectacle of over 50,000 visitors and bidders, mostly wanting to see his mysterious property. After the auction, an Indianapolis bank took control over the property, built a fence around and drained Test's mammoth swimming pool. But soon, the House of Blue Lights and its multiple structures slowly fell into disrepair or fell down. By 1978, the city razed every last structure on the huge property. After Skiles' death, it was his wish that his property become a Boy Scout camp or a nature preserve. That as long as the city maintained the property, it was free for the city to use it as they saw fit. Years later, the city of Indianapolis opened the Skiles Test Nature Park and Greenway. The workers in charge of raising and hauling away the home's debris eventually began to cut corners just to get it done. This left a few random reminders of the property that could be found for years. Everything from concrete slabs, broken plates, and rusty garbage cans, old ceramic drain pieces, and rusty fences on the property's edges. Years have gone by and the legend of the House of Blue Lights has faded some with time. But there are still some that swear when you drive by the area where the old house once stood, you can still see off in the distance blue lights flickering between the trees. This is H.A. Graves.